What's up, everyone, and welcome to week 103. Count it, week 103 of Shark Sports Radio. Alongside of me is Andrew George. He goes by Ticket. It's yours truly, Mark Loisel Jr., aka Shark, right here in the Ocean State. We are rolling here on Thursday evening after the holiday rush. Ticket, how was your holidays?
A little bit of time off. It's weird. We were just talking before we started recording. It's weird having them in the middle of the week. Like, New Year's Eve was obviously 2 days ago, then yesterday's New Year's. And
Yep.
it felt like a Monday today, like getting back into work after having a few days off. It's just like
Yeah.
weird. But then tomorrow's Friday, and then it's the weekend again. And it's a weird feeling, but it was good. How was yours?
Yeah, I can't complain. I mean, I hosted. I made it work. My wife helped out in a lot of different areas, but I think what I did well, just like some teams got to understand, is the infrastructure. The infrastructure of your team, the infrastructure of my house. I moved pieces around, try to figure out what would go where. I added a fire outside. I got people outside, and it was not cold. Luckily, it was nice weather during Christmas, so as you know.
Yep.
So got nice fire, got great food. We had so much food, great drinks, great company, obviously. But the fact I was able to connect and see everyone all under one roof. And I was telling my wife at the end of the night, I was sitting outside, smoking a cigar, by the fire. And I was with a couple of my cousins, and it was like a moment from Christmas Vacation where he sits outside and he looks inside and he goes, "We did it." Well, I was saying I did it because I made it happen in the best way possible. So it was one happy family under one roof, and that's all I asked for during the holidays. So it was a great one. It was a great one.
Yeah. Now, did you host? I know you hosted on Christmas. Did you have to host New Year's Eve at
Oh,
all, or
no,
did you
no.
get to?
New Year's Eve, I'll get into it quickly because it really doesn't need any time. We went to Jackie's Galaxy, in Providence, which was delicious. The diced
Yeah.
pineapple
The
rice with shrimp was incredible.
Ooh.
And then I got shrimp tempura. My wife got like the Boston roll or something of that nature. But then we went to Providence College Friars basketball game. We all know what happened against Marquette.
Yeah.
So that was one thing.
Yeah.
I have had season tickets for a long time, Ticket, for a very long time. I've never left a game. I've left a game until that final whistle blows. On that night, I left at halftime. I said, I can't take it anymore. They're down 27 points. I ain't watching this garbage. It's not worth my time. I want to go happy into the new year. Went home, put on the Christmas lights still. We still got the tree up, baby. And we put on Game of Thrones. So, can't ask for more.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a tough one. I mean, not to go into another PC rant, but it's rare that, especially in recent memory, like under Cooley and then last year with Kim English as well.
Yep.
I mean, the Friars to lose at home is rare. To get waxed like that at home it doesn't happen very often.
If I may, right? I just want to go really quickly on Devin Carter and Josh Oduro. If those guys were not on the roster last year, I hate to say that, but like if Devin Carter and Josh Oduro wasn't there to save Kim English's ass, they would have been irrelevant. They would have been average at best. And that's what they are right now. And I know like it's also about the players on the court, and I understand that, but you went out and utilized the transfer portal. You went out and tried to scout recruits. You did that homework. There's no excuse. You have all this talent around you. You got to make it work. And I don't ask them to win the games. I just ask them to be competitive. Try. Like, for example, they were running offensive sets that I don't even know what they were running. Like, this is recreational basketball, one-on-one type of bullshit. And it's like, have some motion in the offense. Run a pick and roll. Dive to the hoop. Run baseline. Like, this is basketball 101 shit. I was I was there with my wife, and I felt bad because there was a poor guy in front of me with this kid, and I was screaming because I was just like, what are we doing? Like, there is no movement, no off-ball movement. horrible defense, paint defense, rebounding is atrocious. You play against one of the best college basketball teams defensively in Marquette. You know how many steals they had in the first half? 12. They had 12 steals in the first half. I think they finished with 20.
That's pretty wild.
So, like, you know, I know I got to pump my brakes and understand, like, you know, it's always going to be a work in progress. You know, you got transfers, you got young guys, you know, you try to get a mix of everything. Kim's, you know, in his second year, but I'm tired of making excuses for this team. I really am. I think eventually you have to, you know, sack up, go on the court, play with effort, get in people's faces, and play basketball. And they weren't. And they weren't. So my buddy and I have season tickets. Who knows? Like, we're thinking about it. Do we just chalk it up and chalk it up as a loss and say, you know, get them next year, right? Like, on to 2025 when, you know, Jameer Jones comes. If he does, you know, he's committed, but we all know how that works sometimes. You could decommit. And they also have Jalen Harrell. Jalen Harrell is one of the best guards in the country. So, like, again, you got all this talent and you have absolutely nothing to show for. So, but speaking of showing up in NFL Week 16, we had the BDE Award. And I'll give it off to you since I've been talking. I'm going to get off the pedestal, and you go right ahead and give your BDE belt winner of the week.
So I'm going to go with, and it could have been a lot of guys. There were some big offensive performances this week, a lot throughout in a number of games. I'm going to turn the clock back to Saturday night and the awesome game between the Broncos and the Bengals. Yes. An absolute classic. And unfortunately, you know, I got burnt a little bit. I had Denver 3.5. The missed kick, it's gonna haunt me. But regardless, one guy who balled out and caught the game-winning touchdown, T. Higgins, one of 3 touchdowns, caught 11 balls, 131 yards, and 3 scores. If you had T. Higgins in your fantasy championship, you could have put your feet up on the recliner because he got you out to a nice big lead on Saturday night. And helping the Bengals stay hot, helping the Bengals stay alive in the playoff hunt. They need a lot to kind of break their way.
Yes, they do.
But now they own the head-to-head over Denver. You know, obviously they're going to need a couple things, including your Miami Dolphins are going to be in that equation as well. And I'm sure you'll touch upon that yourself. But, yeah, T. Higgins. I could have been Joe Burrow. I could have mentioned him as well, but I feel like Joe Burrow's got a nice collection of those BDE belts, so why not hand one out to T. Higgins?
Yeah, I like T. Higgins a lot. I actually think it helps them, right? If you look at Cincinnati Bengals, their defense, which we'll get into momentarily, is absolutely atrocious. So, like, there's no better way to, you know, balance out the attack offensively with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Chase Brown's coming along too. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues recently, and I kind of agree with them where they say, you know, Chase Brown is like a scat back, right? He's not like a very hard runner between the tackles. You know, he can give you probably 3 or 4 yards per carry, which is pretty decent for a back. But if you want a guy that can average, you know, 4, 5, 6, you know, type of yards per carry, which can happen throughout the game. I mean, Devon Achane's having a hell of a year, you know, for Miami. You're seeing it. He could do both things. Chase Brown, I suspect him kind of taking a Austin Eckler type of role moving forward, you know, where whether they get the big back in, you know, free agency or in the draft, you know, that's something that they can definitely emphasize. But defense is absolutely a need for that team in order to be successful next year because their offense is highly touted. And if I may say on T. Higgins, he's playing for a contract. Like, don't get it twisted. He wants 25, 30 plus, you know, a year. And there's going to be teams calling, so Bengals might miss out on him, and Jamar Chase better be hoping not because it helps out both. It helps out Chase, and it helps out Higgins for them to get open. So let's see what happens there. For my guy, I got Malik Neighbors. I think we're starting to see the true Malik Neighbors as long as you have a quarterback that can throw the football. Now, Drew Lock had a great game. He really did against the Colts. And there was no business for the Colts losing that game, but they absolutely got stomped on. Malik Neighbors, 7 catches for 171 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, you know, against the Colts. And like I said, the Colts were in a wild card hunt. there's no excuse to lose against the Giants. The Giants are trying to lose. They're trying to get the first pick. Neighbors got targets on targets on targets. He's just reeling in these catches, and love seeing it if you're the Giants, because then you have a little bit of promise moving forward. And I think Neighbors had a post-game interview recently where he says, I don't care about my stats. I want to win. He's right. You got to, especially at a young point in your career, you don't want to be called the guy that just puts up numbers and is on a losing team, right? That's the last thing you want to do. So in order to gain momentum for your career, have that winning mentality, that victorious mindset, it allows you to get comfortable within that system. And Brian Daboll does fit that system. It's just they got to find a freaking quarterback. It's just like all these teams, if you just have a lot of talent and crappy quarterbacks. So just find a way to make that happen. Let's see if that happens this year, probably next draft, to be honest with you. This draft's probably a loss with quarterbacks, but I don't think Sanders is the best quarterback of the draft. I think it actually is Cam Ward. But that's a discussion for another day. We'll get to the draft talk. But again, Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU. We all know what LSU wide receivers do. What do? They eat. They're Tigers. They want to go for it, right? So at the end of the day, Odell Beckham Jr., Justin Jefferson, Jarvis Landry, Malik Neighbors is now fitting that bill. So give me Malik Neighbors for BDE belt winner. Let's get into underdog picks. I'm telling you, this is one of the best times to play. You know why? Because a lot of players on the underdog app, you're going to see it. A lot of players, they're not going to play the full game. So take full advantage of that opportunity. Deposit offer is up to $1,000 bonus cash, as you all know. You also get a free pick. Download the app. Use the promo code SharkSports to take full advantage. I'm telling you right now, this week is fun because if you are, trying to, find a way to bring in, different individuals or different, player opportunities and picks in order to make the most of this week, it's a good week to do so because you don't even know if they're going to play the full game. So you can kind of benefit from it as well. So I'll hand it off to you for your underdog pick.
All right. So I'm going to start out, and I'm glad you mentioned that because a couple of my plays are going to be based on that logic right there. I'm going to go with Geno Smith, higher than 245.5 passing yards. The Seahawks are in a tough spot. Rams have the division on lock, but there still is an off chance Seattle can sneak in into the wild card spot. So for the Seahawks, it's a must-win game. The Rams are going to be resting their starters, and the Seahawks just got to go, balls to the wall. Geno Smith also, by the way, a lot of uncertainty in terms of what his future will look like. Seattle, obviously, he's played well there the last couple of seasons, but I just think he's going to go out swinging. Obviously, this is he's got a lot of weapons, must-win game for Seattle, just stay alive in that race and hope things break their way. So I think Geno Smith's going to go out there, throw the rock around, have a lot of success. If you don't like the passing yard number and you're a little wary of, hey, what if they get up and they, pull their guys or the game ends up meaning nothing, 1.5 touchdowns higher than that I would look at as well for Geno Smith, whatever ones you like better. But I think he's going to have a big game this weekend.
I agree with you. So there are, like I said to you, there are teams that obviously are out of the hunt, right? They're no longer a part of the discussion, with wild card or playoff conversation at all. I'm taking full advantage of players that are absolutely in the hunt, going for it all this week. And a guy that comes to my eyes right now is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's up for, MVP discussion, 251.5 passing and rushing yards. I'm going higher on that. And a big reason why is this. He can make history in a lot of different ways. This has been reported by Baltimore Banner, .com. Jackson enters week 18 with a 121.6 passer rating, less than a point behind Aaron Rodgers' all-time mark, 122.5, which is set in 2011 by the Green Bay Packers.